So what better way to learn some of the essential skills you need in mixed doubles from current Commonwealth gold medalist Hee and Jessica Tan. So the first area we're going to look at is flat drives in the mid-court. This is considered a 50-50 area where we're trying to gain the initiative.
So obviously keeping it nice and flat in the mid-court is so essential in mixed doubles. Now when we watched Terry and Jessica doing this, they weren't actually in this sort of traditional sort of super ready position the whole time, racket nice and high up to hit that flat drive, but they were hitting such crisp, clean drives. Why is that, Dean?
I think they were both very relaxed, and sometimes what we see when the game gets fast and flat is that people get tense, particularly with grip pressure, which we talk about quite a lot, but then the impact isn't as good on the shot. So we don't hit the same pace. And I think what's important to say is, yes, they were relaxed, but when the next shot came back, they were very much ready again. So they were able to still inject that level of pace needed to maintain that kind of fast, flat drives in the midcourt.
And they were doing these drives for a long time. They were really working on, they were mixing between using a heavy racket and a sort of their normal racket to really work on that wrist power and forearm rotation on the drives. And they were doing these quite long sets, really working hard. You can tell them they were almost massaging their forearms quite a lot, but they're so used to that shuttle coming fast at them.
And what was very interesting to see is that Jessica was also very strong in the drives area. And I think sometimes, again, that we have this misconception that the lady has to get forward straight away. So she wasn't looking to kind of block and charge. Obviously, the routine was set. But it's important to her to still feel like she can back the lady off as well, or compete with the man in the midcourt first, and then play the block maybe when it's more the right time, rather than feeling it's like, I have to do this.
So if you are now wanting to go away and start working on your drives, what we'd recommend is grab a partner on the other half of the court, do 2 to 3 minute sets where you're just working on driving nice and crisply at each other, staying nice and relaxed, short swings, and here's a massively key point, stay nice and light on your feet so you can adjust your position to get in a better hitting position for each shot. Now, defense. They move straight on from their drives onto the defense, still working on a drive off defense, but obviously from a different position. What do we see here, Dean?
I think the important aspect to talk about here is that they weren't just kind of knocking the shuttle back. They weren't interested in kind of keeping the rally going. Their almost objective was to hit it past the net player and almost the net player getting in the way of the shot. So they were hitting at quite some ferocious pace. And with that, I think we're then, again, having this nice snap through the shot, light grip, and then kind of having that squeeze again on contact.
Yeah, and I mean, if we then flip this to a sort of the tactical side in that mixed doubles, both players looked super confident in defence. That allows you to be able to lift straight and cross, move the rear court player around, and then both were looking to really drive hard through the net player. And then, that brings in the element of where Jessica would be the one to probably more predominantly follow the shot. But they're both setting each other up there.
And it's worth saying that Jessica's very much still practicing when she's off the net. And in that position, because she has to be confident to take on the man smashes. She has to be confident when the lady's really pressing at her. And as you said, David, it's having that confidence to still hit back with pace and then maybe work it into space and then start to press. We can't always assume that the lady's just going to be stuck at the front for the whole game, because that is very unrealistic.
Now, another thing I did actually notice was quite like their drives. They were quite free with their swing, not too restricted, and it helped them get power, but they looked so relaxed as well.
I think this is where we have to sometimes balance up professionals versus club players. I think potentially if we were to kind of copy that at all levels, I think sometimes that shot coming back would actually be very difficult for us to get back. Why do they get away with it a little bit more? There's also a sense of anticipation and readiness that they have from playing years and years of professional play, that they're able to come through and actually still feel that they're actually back ready when they need to be. But if we don't have that coordination or that level sometimes at club, we want to maybe feel like we're a little bit more through, but kind of rebounding so our racket naturally feels like it's here rather than us feeling like we're having to draw it back again. So if you want to go away and work on your doubles defence, we recommend heading over to our YouTube channel and checking out our doubles defence training video. So it was after the defence training when they then moved on to separate areas of the court. So Terry's focused very much in the rear court, mid court, Jessica's focused more towards the net. And the first routine that Terry was doing was a cross court smash, followed by kind of moving on to the cross in mid court. And we found that particularly interesting, David, because it's not necessarily what we would expect to happen.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, traditionally you have what we call channel attack. So Terry would focus attack a bit straighter, and then Jessica would come across and cover that straight. Now, mixed doubles, sometimes typically you'll find the women might have slightly weaker defence, which might be why he's looking for a cross attack. But why he's covering this cross mid is probably to make it a bit easier for Jessica. Because when you cross attack, typically in doubles, it makes it really difficult for that front person. They have to cover both sides. But if Jessica knows, you know what, if Terry's attacking, I just have to cover the straight, and it doesn't matter where he's attacking, he will cover that other area. It simplifies the game for her, and they can be working a bit more in unison.
So even though in the rear court, Terry very much had to hit this cross-court smash, actually, when he got to the mid-court, he's adding a lot of variety of different shots. And I guess in mix, this is very important because the lady may be looking to come in on a straight, in which case he was playing some cross blocks. He's also kind of driving through as well. So it's not just to say that when you get into the mid-court, you then have to play soft. He's still working kind of lots of different options that could be relevant depending on where his opponents are moving.
But the big thing there and the skill set we're looking at is that variety. He can play where that space is at all times. And then he also moved on to a nice multi-feed routine where he was just doing the follow-up. So a straight smash following up to the straight mid-court, your more traditional movement, you would say. But the big thing here is from that mid-court zone, he was still working on his variation, being able to find all the different gaps, whether it was a layoff, a cross turn, or a drive. So Jessica was then working on the net. Now, particularly her first routine was around moving laterally and getting to kills. Dean, what did you notice here?
What I really liked about what Jessica was doing, and something that we promote very much with our own clients, is how much she closed the gap towards the net. Now that does two things. A, obviously make sure she hits the shuttle as early as she possibly can, but also it cuts down the reaction time for her opponents to then get back to that shot. So it's all about, like, it's a lot of her lunging leg, her front foot, and how close she was really bringing that forward, rather than kind of feeling like we're overstretching with our arm and kind of losing a bit of height. Her posture was very much up and in front.
Now, a lot of that comes from utilizing your non-racket leg. Really, that's your sort of engine, I like to call it, and then using this racket leg then to get a really nice deep lunge to close that gap and get yourself as close to the net as possible.
So after the net kills, Jessica moved on to a set 3-shot exercise, and this is an exercise that we're very familiar with and do quite a lot back home.
Essentially, it's looking at adding sort of pressure through sort of a kill/drive at a defender. Then she's looking off on the straight, she's prioritizing that straight shot. And then what I really like is she's then having to cover across the court. She's having to try and get that kill across, almost as if that defender's managed to just get the shuttle away, trying to find the gap. And she's pushed up looking to cover that.
I think what's very interesting to add to that, David, is that once she's looked off, it doesn't mean necessarily, even though she's looking for that side that she's still on, that she can't still come across.
Yeah.
So when we sometimes see people look off that interception, they get very stuck with their legs. They're kind of only looking for that one shot. And it's still important to have that fluidity and that adjustment as possible with our legs to still be able to pounce onto a loose shot at the net.
Yeah, she's still looking to always come forward. She knows Terry's got that one over the top of her head, so it gives her that freedom to keep going. And then she actually reversed that routine. So she started by looking off for that hard drive, then followed up as if they've hit a block to then kill it, and then once again covering that lateral sort of movement across the court. And actually this is something we've seen her been working on all week, so obviously in an area she's really trying to nail down.
Now, a big area that we sometimes hear and particularly see is kind of this lady staying very much on the tee in kind of a game of mix. And I mean, obviously, particularly this week, noticed how much court Jessica's covering. She's obviously springing forwards for the kills, looking off the interceptions, and it's again showing this range of movement that the ladies really have to cover different shots to make themselves very effective at the net.
Precisely. And then finally, they moved on to some hard rear court attack. And probably the biggest thing we saw here was that they were both working on it. So the expectation, Dean, is that yes, Terry's going to be attacking hard from the back, but so can Jessica.
And I think it's interesting that we often have this idea that when the ladies at the back, we're in a weak position, and that is definitely not the case. Most women obviously play mixed, but they also play ladies, so it's not that they're afraid of being at the back or they're unsure of being at the back, and we still have to see that as a positive position because the shuttle is still up in the air and we still have this capability of attacking, and it's okay for also the man to come forward in that situation and be dominant from the net should they need to be. Precisely,
and you want to be still being positive. We just don't want to see these necessarily high clears or slow drops. Be attacking as you normally would, and trust that you can still win in that formation because you can. And this whole exercise was purely just based around power, and that's something we've sort of been seeing across the whole week, hasn't it, Dean?
Definitely, and I'm sure if in their heads there was definitely probably a little bit of accuracy behind it, but in the way of where is their priority, it was how hard could they hit that smash to apply a lot of pressure onto their opponents.
So yes, whilst when you're at the back in mixed, you'll still see Terry hitting a lot of variety within games. When they want to practice hitting hard, they practice hitting hard. Terry is absolutely trying to hit that shuttle as hard as he physically can. So just to round up, we looked at keeping it nice and flat in the mid-court for both players, being nice and relaxed in that area, and same with defence, but looking a bit more on when we're hitting drives in defence, driving as hard as we can. And then for a rear court player, maybe the man in a mixed game, looking at attacking hard, following up, and then good variety, being able to turn the shuttle, play different areas from the mid-court. And then for that front court player, maybe the lady in mixed, being able to cover that court laterally and not sitting on the tee like we often see. And then finally looking at hitting that shuttle as hard as you can when you want to practice hitting hard.
And whilst they are professional players and Commonwealth Gold Champions, the routines and tactics that they're applying are translatable to all levels.
So we hope you enjoyed this video on some mixed doubles skills and tactics. If you liked it, please hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on any other of our great content.